Hello everyone, so in this video we will be discussing encapsulation. So from the previous videos that we have discussed abstraction and inheritance. So in this video we'll discuss the difference of them from the encapsulation. So basically encapsulation is making sure that sensitive data is hidden from the users. To achieve this, you must declare class variables or attributes as private. So meaning to say all the variables in encapsulation will be declared as private, and we need to provide public get and set methods to access and update the value of a private variable. So a class cannot um, since a class with a private members or datas or variables can only be accessed within its own class, the other classes that we have cannot access these datas or variables that we have in another class. So in order for the other class to access the private datas or members from the other class, we might we must need to have a public get and setter methods. So we'll discuss that one in this video. Now we have the encapsulation get and set. So private variables can only be accessed within the same class, again, as what I've told you. However, it is possible to access them if we provide public get and set methods. The get method returns the variable value and the set method sets the values. So for example, you are declaring a private name. So when you use the set method, you are just setting or you are just putting a value to the variable. So the difference with get method now is whatever value that is set from that variable, the get method will be the one to call it, or it will return the value that it have. So for example, we have here the class person, and it declares here a private string name. So our variable here is name. And as you can see, it's in private. So meaning to say only the person class can access that. So in order for the other classes to access the variable name, we need to have a public getters and setters. So here we have the method get name. So from the word itself, it's getting some values from the variable name. So we also have here the set name, in which this will set the value, or this will set a value to the variable name. So from here, it is again public in order for us to access the data inside the private variable. So to get the get methods returns the value of the variable name. The set method takes a parameter new name, as you can see here. It will set a new parameter, and this new parameter will be the one that will ito na yung magiging value ni name na variable. So whatever you have inputted in new name, it will now be the value of the variable name. So the this keyword is used to refer to the current object. So meaning to say that this is referring to the person class and the name. So it is setting this one with the new name or the new value, and magiging kasi new name naman siya na yung magiging value ni name na variable na naka-private. So that is how we access private or restricted access na mga datas like the name variable. So again, this is a class of this is the class, another class, and this is our main class. As you can see, it called the person or the person class, and it just declared a variable. And then from here, this class set the name variable with John. So meaning to say, if we will output this one, my object that get name, since again this one has set the name to John, so meaning to say this one here, the name now will become John. And this one, since it has become John already, then meaning to say when you get the name, it will result to the name John. because you just get the name, that my object that get name and our get name is John, so it will just output the name John. So that is just a concept of how encapsulation works. We just have to use the get and set in order for us to access the private members or private data from a class. So why do we need to use encapsulation? So we will be using encapsulation to have better control of class attributes and methods. These class attributes can be made read-only if you only use the get method, or write-only if you only use the set method. Encapsulation is also flexible. The programmer can change one part of the code without affecting other parts, because you are just setting either that variable, that one variable, you are just setting that, and there's no need for you to change the entire program. It also increased the security of data, since the security of data here, since you are not changing much or you are not changing all of the codes, then your code or your general code will be secure, because there is a big chance that it will have a lesser error. So basically that's it for the encapsulation. Now let's try to have some example in the NetBeans software. Okay, so we now have this example. As you can see, we already created a class or a project for encapsulation. It is named encapsulation 1. So I will just erase this commented phrases here. And then what we are trying to do is we will be using the getters and setters, and we will be having or adding a new class here. And let's name this one as encap class. So we now have this another class. And from this class, I will be setting here the the private datas or the private variables that we will be accessing from this class. So here in the subclass, we'll be declaring here the private datas that we will be having or that we will be using throughout our code. So let's say private string name. So we will just be asking the name of the user, private ID number. So we'll just be setting the ID number. Let's change this into smaller letter. And then we also would declare for the age. So since it's age, we have to use the data type int. And then afterwards, in this in this class, we will be having the public getters and setters. So basically, again, since we have the private variables that we have here, in order for these variables to be accessed by other classes, then we also need to have the public getters and setters. So we'll just have to have a public getters for each of this and public setters for each of this as well. So now we have public string get name. We will also return, since this is a method, then we need, this is a get method, then we need to return a value. Return again class, this is the get word here is the indicator that we are getting something or we are getting data from our private variables. So we need to return a value, and the variable that we will be returning is the name itself. So same goes with the other variable that are private. We need to also set that one. So we have to set public string for ID number, get ID num. And we will be returning as well the ID number. Same process for the age. We have the public int get age, and we will be returning the age. So we now have the get methods that we'll be using to get the value of this variables that we have here, since again we will be needing the get methods in order for us to get the the values inside a private variable. So now we'll just have to have a setter. So to create a setter value, since we are not returning any value, we are just setting a value to our variable, to the private variables that we have here. So we will be having the public void. We can use the void since again we are not returning any value. So we have public void set name, and we will be having a parameter inside this. So, and this parameter will be equivalent now, or this parameter will be the storage for the new value for the private variable. So we now have string new. Let's name this one into new name. And then we have name. The private variable is equivalent to this one, the parameter variable that we have. And then same with the other variable. We also need to have a public setters for them. So we have set id num, and we'll be setting a new id num, and id num will be equivalent to new id num. The same with the age, we will be having public void set age, and we'll have the parameter age, new age, and then we'll have age is equivalent to new age, meaning to say, since we are setting a value to the private variable, we will be storing that value into the new name, and since new name is equivalent to name that is in private, meaning to say name will have the same value with the new name that we have. So we now have the getters and the setters method for this class. Now let's try to ask the user, let's try to prompt the user to input the name, the ID number, and the age. And those inputted values from the user will be the set or the values that we will be setting for this private values or private variable here. So again, let's prompt the user to input what is your name. And then since we are asking the user for the name, then we will be needing a scanner for the input of the user. So we have scanner input is equivalent to new scanner system dot in. And then it's having an error because we don't have an import yet. So we need to have an import java.util scanner. Now, so we now ask the user for the name. Now next we'll be asking for the user for his ID number. And then we'll be storing that one into string new ID num that is equivalent to input dot next. And then for the age, the last one is the age. We'll be asking the user for the age. It will be stored in input dot next int. So now since we already asked them for the details for the name, the ID number, and the age, So in order for us to set the values that we have from here, in order for us to set the values for this one, we need to call this class from our class. So let's say we have the encap class. Let's say we have the variable n is equivalent to new encap class. And then afterwards, we'll be using the methods that we have inside this one. Since we have this method, then we'll be using these methods here. So let's say that n, this one, dot set name, we'll be setting that name into new name. So meaning to say whatever the input of the user will be the value for the name. Next, also, we will be setting the age and the ID number. So we have set ID num to new ID num. We also have set age into new age. Now, afterwards, after that, we'll be outputting or summarizing the result of the input of the user. So we'll be having system.out.println. So sabihin lang natin you are, and then we'll be calling this one the get method in order for us to know that we have para malaman natin kung tama ba yung nakaset na name in the variable, in the private variables that we have. So again, we already set their values, and in order for us to know that it was also saved from the private variables, then we will be calling the get method here. So let's say n dot get name plus your ID number is, n dot get ID num plus you are, then we have get age, n dot get age. So let's try to run this one and see if we really have the values now, or if we have already set and get the values of the private variables that we have. So we have here, what is your name? So if I input Angel, and then what is your ID number? Let's say 123 QWERTY. And then for the age, let's say 18. And then it will just say here that you're Angel, your ID number is 123 QWERTY, and you are 18. So meaning to say, whatever we set, whatever values that we set for the private variables are already there, and we have already accessed the private variables that we have. So I believe that's it for this video. I hope you learned something from this video, and I know that you won't get this in one blink only. So please study, and that's it for this video. Thank you.